Hello and welcome to a little recap of what's been happening with Phasmophobia in the month of June. So I'm going to cover all the main updates, announcements, and what might be coming in the future. First of all, there was a very big update where they added 2 new ghost types and a new map. So for the first ghost type, this is the Yokai. The Yokai is based on sound and players talking. So the strength of the Yokai is that talking nearby it will make it angry and increase the chance of it attacking. In gameplay terms, this means that it can and probably will hunt you earlier than other ghost types if you're talking nearby. It's the only non-freezing ghost that can hunt you above 50% sanity. From my experience, talking near the Yokai, you can get hunted above 70% sanity, so do be careful if you think you might be dealing with a Yokai. The weakness of the Yokai, however, is that if you talk during a hunt, it can't hear you too well. The hearing range of the Yokai is very, very limited during a hunt. From experience, it feels around 1 to 2 meters, so you are a little bit safer if you accidentally scream or need to say something. The evidence for the Yokai is the Spirit Box, Ghost Orbs, and Ghost Writing. In addition to the Yokai, they also added a second ghost type. This is the Hantu. Very interesting concept for this ghost. Its power revolves around the temperature of the room that it's currently in. So the Hantu moves faster in rooms with lower temperatures, and in warmer rooms, on the contrary, it moves slower. So the whole gameplay revolves around keeping the breaker on at all times in order to make sure that the Hantu is slower. However, you can't control the temperature in the ghost room, so it's always going to move a bit faster in the ghost room if the breaker's on, if the ghost room is a lot colder than the other rooms. But what you will notice, because different rooms warm up and cool off at different rates, so you can actually notice the Hantu speeding up and slowing down as it traverses different rooms, which is really interesting to see. Sometimes you will see this mainly on the bigger maps where there is a really big variety in room sizes. I guess on the smaller maps like the houses, the rooms will probably cool off and warm up at similar rates because they're all kind of similar size. But yes, very interesting concept for this ghost. Keep the breaker on at all times. It's also worth mentioning that the Hantu does speed up with line of sight, just like all the other ghost types except a Revenant. So do focus on breaking line of sight, just like you would with the others at the moment. The evidence for the Hantu is fingerprints, ghost orbs, and ghost writing. One thing I will say about the Hantu is I'm not very scared of the Hantu. I don't think they're a very big menace because even in the coldest temperatures, they don't seem terribly fast. They only seem to outspeed you slightly. And I do believe when the house is really, really warm, or the building, in the warmest temperatures possible, I think you outspeed the Hantu slightly from experience. They do seem rather slow. But like I said, they will speed up with line of sight, so do focus on breaking line of sight if you can. But yes, I definitely still think there's more menacing ghosts out there, i.e. the Rev, Jinn, Phantom. There's some that stand out to me. As well as the 2 new ghost types, one of the biggest additions this update was a new map which came as a complete surprise. This map was Willow Street House, a small map very comparable to the size of Tanglewood. I do love Willow Street House, one of my favourites, and the reason for this is that there are no lockers and closets, so the whole gameplay loop during hunts revolves around hiding behind furniture and making the most of that, which is a change that I really adore. I would love it if Phasmophobia kind of stuck to this kind of direction, because I find hiding behind furniture much more engaging and interesting from a gameplay perspective in comparison to lockers and closets. I feel like the time of lockers and closets is kind of past us. They were necessary at the beginning when there was no such thing as hiding behind furniture, but the game is changing. It's definitely changing, and I'm liking the direction that it's going in hunts in regards to hiding. It might seem scary at first, hiding behind furniture, but it's actually very doable. I feel like once you've nailed it down on Willow, like learning where you can and can't hide, where will work and where won't, I feel like that will really enhance your gameplay knowledge that you can then apply to other maps as well, in order to determine where you think you might be safe hiding. So I think it's a really interesting map in general. Honestly, one of my favourites. Like I said, I would love it if going forward maps did revolve around this feature and didn't involve lockers and closets, personally. They were the main additions of this update, but there are a few little other things worth mentioning. So first of all, they did do some tweaks to the demon. The demon can now hunt at a different threshold. In the past, it could hunt from 65% sanity. After testing, from my experience, I have found that the demon can hunt from 70% sanity. I've gone into a few missions, I've slowly drained my sanity with candles, 1% at a time, and every time the demon did hunt from 70, so I'm quite confident that's the new threshold where it can hunt from. Just to make them a little bit more of an inconvenience. Another little addition in this update is that they did make a little tweak to how the ghosts behave if they see you go into a locker or closet. So in the past, they just used to walk straight past and just ignore it quite often. These days, if they see you go into a locker or closet, they should come straight up to the door and they should try and open the door, even if you're holding it shut. I have actually died a few times when they followed me to the door. They've ripped it open, even if I'm holding it shut, and even if I've tried to close it within the second, sometimes them opening the door really quickly has just been enough to let them get line of sight and has been enough to allow them to come in and kill me. So I do feel like lockers and closets are not as safe if the ghost follows you there. Do try and focus on breaking line of sight before you get to a locker and closet if you're trying to hide there. And of course, do make sure to stay quiet because they will hear you. And if they hear you talking inside, they will just rip the door open anyway, even if you're holding it shut. There is one more thing that I do want to mention from this update that I feel has had a very significant impact on gameplay. This is in relation to the ghost wandering. So there are two little points that they mention in the patch notes regarding this. Let's go over them. First of all, the ghost now has a small chance to wander far from its room. Secondly, fixed a bug where the ghost was never wandering out of its room. From my experience, the vast majority of missions I have experienced some quite big wandering. I really don't feel like it has been a small chance, as the patch notes suggest. Wandering has been interesting over the last couple of weeks, I have to say. Some missions, it's been a very, very fun challenge actually when it's not been too severe. Other missions, it's definitely borderline frustration. So some of the issues with wandering is that you might get footsteps, you might get interactions, you might get items being thrown potentially anywhere on the map. What this also has an impact on is the thermometer and temperatures. I've found the thermometer is borderline useless in this update. It's really, really balked. So because the ghost is wandering so much, you might struggle to get the cold temperatures. You might struggle to even find the ghost room. Sometimes the actual ghost room will be warm because the ghost is never there. You might get cold temperatures somewhere on the other side of the map. Later on, I found that these cold temperatures might disappear, the room might go warm, and you might just get cold temperatures somewhere else, a random room on the map, and it will keep changing throughout the mission. I've had some missions where the ghost room has never gone cold, and this has been a frequent occurrence, not just a one-off as well, and I do believe it's all tied to the wandering. One other thing that's been difficult with the wandering is getting a response on the spirit box, which in the past has worked very reliably around the ghost room when the ghost has been nearby. I've had some missions where spirit box has been the evidence and I've not got it until like 20 minutes in. I've walked around the ghost room, and the whole map, trying the box, got no responses at all, even when I've heard footsteps nearby. And then later in the mission, I've just magically got spirit box. So it's definitely an interesting one at the moment, the wandering. How have your experiences been with wandering? Do let me know down in the comments. I'd be really interested to see. From people that I've spoken to so far, everyone else is experiencing the same thing. It does make for some interesting missions, like I said. Some of them are a good challenge, but like I said, sometimes when it's too much and you just really can't pinpoint anything or get any evidence, it can borderline a bit of frustration. One other thing that this can make a bit more difficult is where they're going to spawn during hunts. I've had some ghosts that have spawned nowhere near the ghost room during hunts, so you really do have to be on the ball in this update. I feel like smudge sticks are more important than ever. Do keep them close to you, because you never know where the ghost is going to pop up from. But yeah, wandering is interesting, I think, as a gameplay mechanic. I just feel like it needs a bit of tweaking. I think they need to just find the sweet spot at the moment. I'm not sure it's quite there. One final change I do want to mention from this update, smudge sticks have been changed. Their smoking duration has gone down from 15 seconds to 6 seconds. Now some have argued this is a buff, some have argued this is a nerf. This is my take on it. I think it's a bit of both, personally. So how the smudge sticks actually work, let me just do a little recap for you, for those who might not know. So the smudge stick only does 2 checks. When the smudge stick is actually burning in the middle, it has no effect. So the checks that the smudge stick does are when you light the smudge stick and when it burns out. So in between, it has no effect on the ghost. So in the past, there was 15 seconds between these checks. If the ghost was in the area when the smudge stick was lit, and then when it burnt out, it would apply the relevant effect to the ghost, depending on if you're in a hunt or not. Now, the time between the 2 checks has been reduced to 6 seconds, between it lighting and burning out. So I would argue this is a buff during hunts if you're trying to repel the ghost, because if you mess up your first attempt, your second attempt will arrive sooner, within 6 seconds instead of 15. However, I do feel like this is a nerf if you're trying to smudge a big room in order to prevent a hunt or just to do the smudge objective. Let's take the cafeteria on Prison as an example. Very big room. In the past, you might have tried to smudge one side and then smudge the other side. So you probably could have lit it in one corner, walked 15 seconds, and then smudged another area deeper in the room. Now you only get 6 seconds between each check of the smudge stick, basically just when it lights and when it burns out. So you can't walk very far. So I would argue it's a bit of a nerf in regards to doing that, but maybe a buff during hunts. Interesting changes anyway. You do have to use them more strategically now. Just wait till the ghost is near you and then activate it. Just try not to panic. Still very useful items though, something I always bring around, so do keep them close. In addition to this very big update, there was also one very important and big announcement. The Phasmophobia dev team has been expanded, so DK has hired an artist and a programmer to help him work on the game. They're going to help him work on updating the current content as well as adding new content. So very exciting, I can't wait to see what they're going to come up with. Looking very good for the future of Phasmophobia. Speaking of the future is looking very bright. The devs have been updating the Trello board in recent days. That is essentially the roadmap for Phasmophobia, and there's some very juicy, exciting content coming up. So first of all, for the in progress section, they are working on a progression overhaul. This will include an objectives rework, equipment rework, leveling rework, money and rewards rework, and difficulty rework. Cannot wait to see what they come up with. So first of all, objectives rework. I'm guessing this is going to be the optionals. Excited to see what they're going to do with that. Equipment rework. Personally, I'm hoping to see some changes to maybe the parabolic microphone and the sensors. I feel like they need the most love in my opinion. I don't really find them too useful in most missions. I do struggle to find a use for them. Then the leveling rework. I guess they're going to change it so it's not a linear leveling system. We'll see what they do with that one. Money and rewards rework. Really excited for that. Hopefully something that we can work towards as well. I do wonder what route they're going to take. Maybe cosmetics. Maybe something else. Maybe they're going to lock some equipment behind higher levels. Who knows? We'll see. And finally, a difficulty rework. This is something that I'm really looking forward to because I don't feel like there's too much difference between the difficulties at the moment. I feel like the main difference is the length of hunts. So not too much really. I would love it if they were a bit more distinct, either end, like amateur and professional. So I'm sure they will be. I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do anyway. Going to be interesting. Also on the backlog, they have a few more categories that are worth mentioning. First of all, they have general changes or additions. This covers new accessibility options, so colorblind options, quick chat for ghost communication, and more, I'm sure. Then they have random weather chances for each map. Going to be very interesting. Add a bit more of a unique flair each time you go back to each map. I think that would be cool to see. I think a daytime map would be cool. Mike, I guess daytime horror always hits a little bit differently, doesn't it? It's not what you expect, putting you out your comfort zone. Increase use for temperature, opening windows, heaters, etc. That could be interesting if the ghost opens the windows and makes rooms cold. I do wonder if that's something that's going to happen. Intrigued to see what they're going to do with that one. Long-term tracking player stats, deaths, hunts, contracts, money in and out. Yeah, I'm a sucker for stats myself. Data is beautiful, so yeah. Looking forward to seeing it. And finally, cursor customization. Size, icon, colour and transparency. I suppose that'll tie in with the accessibility a bit as well, which is lovely. Next, an amazing sounding section. Wait for this. Horror 2.0. It's going to include new ghost event overhaul, hallucinations, new death rooms, new death animations, and sound overhaul and additions. Sounds like they're reworking the horror aspects from the ground upwards, including new additions. Sounds like it's going to be fantastic. Injecting a bit of fear back into Phasmophobia. It is a horror game, after all. I know that a lot of veterans and people that have played a long time, myself included, have become a little bit numb to some of the scares, I suppose. So it's going to be interesting when this drops. Can't wait to see what they do with it. I do know that the devs are quite big fans of like the old school style horror as well, which is something that I really respect and adore about Phasmophobia. It's not about the cheap jump scares. It's all about the creepy atmosphere, the tension throughout the mission, not knowing if something's going to happen, and the unpredictability. So already, I feel like the game nails that quite well. Having more on top of that is going to be fantastic. So really, really exciting. Looking forward to that one massively. The next big section is new content drops. So new ghost types, new evidence types, new equipment types, and new maps. They've already nailed 2 of them. New ghost types, the Yokai Hantu, and new maps, we've had Prison and Willow Street House since launch. Done a fantastic job with them, so I can't wait to see what else they're going to do. New equipment is going to be a new one. We've not actually had any new equipment. Looking forward to see what's coming. I do remember seeing something about night vision goggles and maybe an SLR camera as well, so we shall see what they're going to do. Going to be interesting. And finally, new evidence types. Again, something they've not dabbled in yet. One thing that I did pick up on watching back the announcement trailer for Phasmophobia is that dirty water was originally planned to be evidence. I do wonder if that could make a comeback. I was thinking about this one. What if you had maybe a jar or a glass that you could take into the building? Maybe if you had to fill it up with water at a sink and then go and put that jar or glass of water in the ghost room. And then there was a chance that if the ghost interacted with it, it could turn dirty. That was just my little headcanon, my little brainstorming on that one. Who knows if dirty water will come back though? For the last 2 sections, first of all, they've added a core systems overhaul. This is going to include a new main menu room, new equipment layout for the van, new journal design, and finally a UI overhaul. And next up, a VR overhaul to finish. They're planning to swap from OpenVR to OpenXR to allow support for new headsets and controllers. So the previous sections I've mentioned are all on the backlog. The only one that's in progress is the progression overhaul, the one that included the objectives rework, equipment rework, leveling rework, money and rewards rework, and difficulty rework. So we might expect to see them in an upcoming update. Very exciting. And to round this video up, I just want to mention the devs kindly took part in a Q&A recently, which is in the official Phasmophobia Discord. I will put a link to that down in the description, so check that out if you want to join, if you're not a member already. The Q&A covered quite a few things about the dev's background, about the future development, and about the art and animation. There's some very interesting things that were raised there, a few things that were clarified as well, so I do recommend a read. The main things worth mentioning off the top of my head is that they are planning to port Phasmophobia to consoles. There will be no Steam Workshop support that they're planning at the moment. And also, I think they're going to rework how the beta branch is working. I think updates might just be coming only to the live branch in the future. But it is definitely worth a read. I do recommend checking that one out. That's all for Phasmophobia in June. It's been a big month. There's been a big update. 2 new ghost types. A new map. The dev team has been expanded. They've clarified a lot of things in the Q&A session. And finally, the roadmap is looking very, very juicy going forward. Lots of exciting content to come. What are you excited for the most? Do let me know down in the comments. Thank you for watching. As always, take care of yourselves and I'll catch you soon.